Hello everyone, this is the first class on kinematics of machines or kinematics of machinery. So before going into the details of the subject, we will have a slight introduction on various terms that we will be using in this particular course. So the initial classes will be to make you understand certain terms that we will be using in this course. Kinematics of machines is considered as a part of theory of machines, which is a branch of science which deals with the study of relative motion between various parts of the machine and the forces which acts on them. When we study about the relative motion between the parts of the machine, that part of theory of machines is known as kinematics. And when we study or when we analyze the forces that acts on the parts of a machine, then that particular study is known as dynamics. In kinematics, we actually analyze the displacement, the velocity and the acceleration of a part of a machine. And in dynamics, we analyze the forces that acts on the machine. So in this particular subject, that is in kinematics of machine or machinery, we will be studying about various methods to analyze the displacement, the velocity and acceleration of the parts of a machine. Once you know or once you have an understanding about velocity and acceleration, then we can use that understanding to find the force. So you will have a course on dynamics of machines in the next semester, where you have to use the understanding that you have from this particular course. When we discuss about kinematics of machine, one of the most commonly used term is a mechanism. What is a mechanism? Mechanism is defined as a combination of number of parts which are assembled with each other in such a way that the motion of one of the part causes a constrained and predictable motion to the other part. One of the simplest mechanism that we can encounter is a slider crank mechanism. A slider crank mechanism consists of 4 parts. One is the frame, then you have the crank, the second part. The crank is connected to the slider, which is a piston, by a connecting rod, which is the third part, and the fourth one is the piston, or in kinematics we call it as the slider. And then there is a connection between the slider and the cylinder, which is also considered as fixed. So that is also counted as part number 1. So totally in a slider crank mechanism there are 4 parts, and these 4 parts are connected with each other, and each part has a specific motion, and motion of each part is predictable and repeatable. So that is the definition of a mechanism. So this is how the slider crank mechanism works. The crank will be the driving link. For any mechanism, there will be a driving link and a driven link. The crank, in the case of a slider crank mechanism, the crank will be the driving link and the slider will be the driven link. Basically, a slider crank mechanism is a mechanism that converts the rotational motion of a crank to a translatory motion or straight line motion of the slider. Another term that is used is a machine. A machine is a mechanism or a combination of mechanisms which, apart from giving a definite motion to the parts, also transmits and modifies the available mechanical energy into some kind of useful work. As we have seen, slider crank is a type of mechanism, and if we can combine the slider crank mechanism with other mechanisms like valve mechanism, we can convert the energy obtained from the motion of the slider to the rotational motion of the crank, which in turn will help in moving the vehicle. Thereby, the mechanical energy produced by the slider can be used to convert into an useful work. The useful work in this case of an automobile is the motion of the vehicle. The next term that we are going to learn is a kinematic link. A kinematic link is a member or a combination of members in a mechanism which are connected to other members and they have a relative motion between each other. For example, as we have discussed, in the case of a slider crank mechanism, there are 4 links. Those 4 links are, link 1 is the frame, link 2 is the crank, link 3 is the connecting rod that connects the crank with the slider or the piston, and link 4 is the slider or the piston. So totally there are 4 links in the case of a slider crank mechanism. Kinematic links are classified into 3 based on the number of links that can be connected with a particular link. The classifications are binary link, ternary link and quaternary link. In the case of a binary link can be connected to 2 other links. A ternary link can be connected to 3 links, and a quaternary link can be connected to 4 links. So these are the points where the other links are connected to this particular link. Next term is kinematic pair. Kinematic pair is nothing but a joint between 2 links which are having relative motion between them. So in a simple terms, we can say a kinematic pair is the joint between links. For example, in the case of a slider crank mechanism, as I have told you, there are 4 links, but how many joints are there? There is a joint between link 1 and link 2, that is between the frame and the crank, that is here. There is a joint between 2 and 3. There is a joint between 3 and 4, and there is a joint between 4 and 1. Okay. So how many pairs are there? There are 4 pairs. 1, 2, 2, 3. Always pair is designated by 2 links. Okay. 3, 4 and 4, 1. Also, these pairs has a particular type of relative motion. In the case of a slider crank mechanism, link 1 and 2, link 1 is the frame which is stationary, link 2 is rotating. Okay, so link 2 rotates with respect to link 1. Okay, so that pair is known as a turning pair. Okay, pair 1 2 is a turning pair. Similarly, 2 and 3 will also rotate, right? So when 1 rotates in the clockwise direction, 3 also will undergo a rotational motion. Okay, it will move in this way, in this direction. So when you consider the joint 2 3, that is this joint, it also is a turning pair. It is also a turning pair. Similarly, the joint 3 4 is this one, this joint, that is also a turning pair. Okay, but what about 4 and 1, the joint 4 1? We know that the slider is sliding. It can slide along x-axis. Okay, so with respect to, and 1 is stationary. So with respect to 1, 4 is having a translation motion along x-axis. So we call the pair 4 1 as a sliding pair. Sliding pair. So according to the type of relative motion that constitute the pair, we have two types of pairs in the case of a slider crank mechanism, that is turning pair and sliding pair. Turning pairs are link pair 1 2, 2 3, 3 4, and sliding pair is 4 1. Okay, so when you get a mechanism, and if you are asked to identify the pairs in a mechanism, you must be able to identify what type of pair it is. There are many ways in which a kinematic pair is classified. Out of that, there are three main methods of classification. One is based on the nature of contact between the two links, then based on the mechanical constraint, and third one is based on the relative motion between the two links. According to the nature of contact, there are two types of classification. One is known as a lower pair. In the case of a lower pair, a lower pair is formed when the pair of links have surface or area contact between the members. For example, an example for lower pair is a nut and bolt arrangement. So nut is a link and bolt is another link, and when you tighten the nut in the bolt, then the contact between the nut and the bolt will be an area contact. Understood? So then such a type of pair is known as a lower pair. When there is an area contact, then such a pair is known as a lower pair. Okay, another example is in the case of a hole and a bearing, a shaft, hole and a shaft. The contact area, contacts is a surface or area contact. The contact area or region between the shaft and the hole will be a surface or area contact. If the pair has a point or line contact, then that type of pair is known as a higher pair. Okay, for example, in the case of a cam and follower arrangement, for example, if you have a knife edge follower, that is the edge of the follower is in the form of a knife. Okay, so the contact is a point contact. That is, the contact between the follower and the cam is a point contact. Such a pair is known as a higher pair. Now there is the second type of classification for kinematic pair, that is if according to the nature of mechanical constraint they are classified, the pairs are classified as a closed pair and an unclosed pair. In the case of a closed pair, the pair is formed between the link when the links are held together mechanically by some mechanical fasteners or by welding. If the links are held together to form the pair, then it is known as a closed pair. And if the links are held together by force of gravity or by some spring action, then such a pair is known as an unclosed pair. An example for unclosed pair is again cam and follower arrangement, where the follower is held in its place by the force of gravity or by spring action. Now, according to the nature of relative motion between the links, the kinematic pair has a number of classification. One is the sliding pair, where the two links have a sliding motion relative to each other. Like in the case of a crank and the slider crank mechanism, we have discussed that the pair formed between the slider and the frame is a sliding pair, because the relative motion between the slider and the frame is sliding. So it is a sliding pair. Similarly, when one link has a turning or revolving motion relative to the other, then that type of pair is known as a turning pair. We have again seen it in the case of a slider crank mechanism, that is the pair formed between 1 2, link 1 2, 2 3 and 3 4 are all turning pairs, because any one of the link is undergoing a rotational motion relative to the other link. Now the third type of classification based on nature of relative motion is a rolling pair, when the link of a pair have a rolling motion relative to each other. An example is a ball bearing. Okay, so the ball and the bearing, these are two different links, and the relative motion between the two links is a rolling motion. Okay, so then they form a rolling pair. Now another type of classification is a screw pair, where the two mating links have a turning as well as sliding motion between them. That is in the case of a nut and bolt arrangement. Okay, so you can see the nut, when it is tightened or loosened, it will have a turning as well as a translation, a sliding motion. Okay, so then a nut and bolt arrangement forms a screw pair. Now the last type of classification is known as a spherical pair, where one of the link, which is in the form of a sphere, turns inside a fixed link. So you can see in this figure, an example is a joystick. Okay, so a joystick will be spherical in shape. One of the link of the joystick will be spherical in shape, and which will be placed in a fixed link. So when the joystick is rotated, one of the link is moving inside the fixed link. Okay, so that is a type of spherical pair. So these are the different types of classification of kinematic pair, and the classification based on the nature of relative motion is very important, because once you get a mechanism, you must be able to identify the number of links and the number of pairs, and also you will have to identify the type of pair based on the relative motion. So these are some important things that you should be able to do when you are given a mechanism.